Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I hope that you all are fine, happy and fresh. This is your science teacher Muhammad Mashood Khan, and today we are going to study a topic from chapter number 11, that is the environment. But before I start today's topic, let me recall the previous knowledge first, that what we have learned so far in this chapter. We have studied about environment and its factors. We discussed about environment, that anything around you is called the environment, and this environment is basically divided into two factors. One is the biotic and other is the abiotic. Biotic factor is the one in which we include all living things, and abiotic factors are the one in which we include all non-living things. The example of the biotic factor are the all plants, animals, even humans. These are the example of the biotic factors, and in abiotic factors, these are non-living things, for example like water, air and soil. Now then we discuss about the woodland habitat. We discussed the woodland, and we said that woodland is divided into four layers, and the first layer was the tree layer, that is also called the canopy. The second is the shrub layer, the third is the field layer, and the fourth one is the ground layer. Then we discussed about the river habitat, that those living things which are living inside the river and the bank of the river, and they do interact with each other, are called the river habitat. And then we discussed about the desert habitat, the one which are living in the deserts. And what is desert? Desert is a place where there is a very less amount of rainfall. And we discussed about the camel, that camel is the animal that can live in a desert for a longer period of time, and naturally it has storages in it, in which the camel can store its food in the form of camel can store its food in its hump in a form of fat, and even can store water inside its body. And the plants are in a such way that their roots are just beneath the surface of the soil, of the sand. So when the dew comes on the surface, so this dew is absorbed by the roots of the plant. So this is how the plants and animals survive in the desert. Then we discuss about the food chain, that we discussed that the food chain is a series of events in which one organism eats another and obtains its energy, and a food chain shows one possible path along which energy can move through an ecosystem. So food chain is like the process by which we can say that one living thing gets its energy from. So when we see this complete chain, so that is called the food chain, and we will discuss this food chain and ecosystem in the next slides. Then we have the parts of the food chain. We have divided the food chain into three parts. The one is the producers, then the second is consumer, and the third one is decomposer. We have already discussed this all, so I will just briefly recall all these things, and then we will move to the today's topic. So producers are the one which can produce their own food, like green plants. They are the one which can produce their own food, so that is why they are called producers. Consumer are the one which cannot make their own food, but they are depending on the other living things, are called consumer. Just like we can take the example of a lion. Lion gets its food by hunting its prey. So that is how, so basically what is happening, that the lion is not making its own food, it's depending on the other living thing. So that is called the consumer. And the decomposers are the one which when the animal or plant get died, they decomposes in the soil and they provide the nutrients to the producer again. So moving to the next slide, we have classified the consumers. Classification of consumer is into three parts. The first one is the herbivores, the second one is the carnivores, and the third one is the omnivores. Now we will discuss these three parts one by one. Herbivores. Herbivores are also called the primary consumer. Animals that eat plants are called herbivores, For example, rabbit are herbivores. They eat grass, cereals, carrots, lettuce, and many other plants. So, who are herbivores? The one who get their food through plants are called the herbivores. Why they are called primary consumer? They are called the primary consumer because they get their food directly from the producer. Like they take their food is the producer. Who are producer is the one who produces its food by itself, like green plants. So the animals which feed on the green plants are called the primary consumer, right? Just like there is an example that rabbit is a herbivore because rabbit takes its food from the green plants. And even you can see the zebra is there, cow, giraffe, elephant. These all are the example of the herbivores because they take their food from the plants, and plants are the producers. So now moving to the next slide. Carnivores are the secondary consumer. Animals that feed on other animals are called the carnivores. For example, a fox is a carnivore. It feeds on the animals such as insects, mice, birds, and rabbits. So shortly, those animals which get their food from other animals are called the carnivores. And the examples are the fox, wolf, lion, shark, because they all hunt, and they hunt the other animal and they eat the other animals. So those animals which get their food from the other animals so are called the carnivores. The next is the omnivores. So some animals feed on a diet that includes both plants and other animals. These are called the omnivores. For example, badgers are omnivores. They feed on things such as grass, fruits, slugs, worms, and rabbits, etc. So this is the example of the omnivores. So omnivores are the one which get their food from both. They eat the plants also as well as they eat the animals. Just like the most common example we can take is the humans. Like humans are the one which consumes both things. They eat plants also and they eat animals also. Just like we eat fruits, we eat vegetables, and at the same time we eat birds. Like any bird we can eat, and the animals we take sheep, we take deer, and many more. So these are the example of the omnivores. Now we will see that how this classification of consumer, that we have classified these consumers into herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, how does they play role in the food chain. So now in the picture you can see this is the food chain of an owl. That includes the producer, that is the plant. Then this plant is eaten by an insect, that is a herbivore, and that is a consumer. Then this herbivore is eaten by an omnivore, that is a mouse. And this mouse is eaten by an owl, that is carnivore. So you see that the owl is finally getting its food, but this is the food chain for an owl. Then how owl will get its food? For example, if there is no plants, it means that these insects will not get their food. If there will be no food for insects, these insects will not survive, and this mouse, that is a consumer, so that mouse will not get its food. So similarly, when there will be no mouse, the owl will be facing difficulty for its food. So this is the one food chain that is mentioned here, that is shown here, and beneath it is saying that a food chain shows the path of energy from one living thing to another. Decomposers like bacteria are necessary for all food chains. So this is something extra information. So now concluding this all, we discussed about the food chain, and then in food chain we divided this food chain into three parts: producer, consumer, and decomposer. And then further we discussed about the classification of consumer. We classified the consumer into three parts: the herbivore, carnivore and omnivore. Then we said that herbivores are the one which eats the plants, carnivores are the one which gets their food by eating other animals, and omnivores are the one which can get their food from both plants and animals also. And then we discussed about the food chain of an owl. So I hope that